I'm going to show you how to tear down some newsprint for printmaking. My tripods have all partially broken, so I'm trying to do the best I can with what I can figure out. So for newsprint for printmaking, we use this for taking proofs if we don't want to use our nice paper. We use this typically in between our nice paper and maybe if we're using a press, we have a layer of newsprint between our nice paper and the press so that in case any ink gets out, it doesn't affect the several $100 press blankets. And sometimes just using it on, just to have it on hand as like a backup paper for cleaning things. The reason we don't usually print on newsprint by itself is that it's not an archival paper. There's acids, lignins, things that will deteriorate over time. I have some things that I printed 10 years ago on newsprint, and it's yellowed over time. It hasn't completely disintegrated like I expected it would, but it's a lot more brittle and yellowed, and so it's not good for permanent prints, but could be, if you're planning on temporary prints, it's okay. It doesn't absorb the same way as a lot of the rag-based or mulberry, kozo-based papers, Western or Eastern, that can absorb ink. This still absorbs ink, and it's pretty, it's funny because sometimes I'll take prints on my newsprint and I actually think it looks nicer than on white paper because it is an off-white, a little bit tan. I believe it's Somerset that has a newsprint color paper now because they found that a lot of printmakers said the same thing, that they thought it looked good on. So there is one brand that carries a newsprint like color, which I think is funny. So tearing the newsprint, you should try to get a ruler that is a little bit wider than the paper you're tearing down. I'm just using like an 18-inch ruler, and this is 18 inches wide for the newsprint. In the printmaking classroom, we have a special tear bar, but it's expensive and that's not an everyday thing that people need. So usually, unless you decide to become a printmaker, or usually this is not a tear bar, isn't something one usually has. It's solid steel and heavy and things like that. All right, so I'm going to show you how to tear this down. Similar to large printmaking paper, I'll often so you might not be able to see this, separate the newsprint. And with newsprint, because it's just kind of cheap paper, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm a little bit rougher when I handle newsprint. I want to keep it, flat and maybe not very creased. But what's great is I can usually tear several papers at a time. And with a ruler, I might do like 3 sheets at once. All right, so when I go to tear something, I fold it in half and pinch it on the top and the bottom. I don't want to crease it all the way up and down because that will fold the fibers and sometimes make it even more difficult to tear. So you just want 2 creases that will be defined enough for your ruler to kind of sit in. And so depending on your lighting, you might have to shift around to see where those creases are. Or a lot of times you can kind of feel it once you kind of pick up one corner and check that out. So I'm going to tear it by pulling it towards myself and maybe slightly to one side, but usually it's a up motion back towards myself. So I'm going to hold on to this and I'm going to inch my hand down as I go, trying not to move the ruler. But for newsprint, it doesn't matter as much. But this is similar to how I tear large printmaking paper, like the 22 by 30 inch paper. All right, so here we go. And For determining a size to tear down your newsprint, I usually want sheets of newsprint that are about an inch larger than whatever paper I'm going to be working with on all sides. This is 18 by 24. I know that a lot of students will be working with either 9 by 11, 9 by 12, or 8 by 10, or 8.5 by 11. So this being 9 by 12, this will cut down to 9 by 12 in quarters. So for those with 9 by 12, this is cutting it a little bit close, but should work for that 8 by 10, 8.5 by 11 size. So just like before, I'm going to hold this here, pinch, pinch, and I'm just lining up one corner with the other. I'm not being super accurate. If I needed an accurate size, I would measure it with a ruler first. So slide that into the creases and pull up towards yourself. That's small enough of a distance where I didn't have to worry too much. And so I usually tear enough for if I know I'm going to take a certain amount of prints, I'll cut enough for the prints. And then usually I want to have like a small stack nearby on hand. If anybody's going to be printing with mounted linoleum, I suggest actually making a small stack of these and maybe having extra newsprint on hand. There's one method of printing where you can stand on the block, but it's helpful to have a slight cushion underneath of it. And sometimes I'll use just a stack of newsprint, and maybe I'll do a stack of newsprint on top of newspapers. But you usually don't want straight up newspaper with all the ink right next to your nice paper or block. So having a small stack like this is good. So tear as many as you need for as many prints as you might want to try on newsprint. And maybe just a small stack to have on hand.